Good morning, everybody. My name is Saverio Pittoreri. I'm male, 49 years old. But what probably is more interesting for you, I'm the owner and founder of a firm that is called Easy Trade, as you can read here. And my company, my firm I should say, is focused on the international business consultancy. I was called here by my friend Massimo to bring you some advices from my experience about that. 99% of my clients normally ask me to look for a reliable and motivated dealer. That's the understandable main request. Honestly, rarely some of them ask me to face different tasks. And as you can imagine, they are probably more interesting for me because they are something unusual. First of all, can you hear me, or should I use the microphone? Okay.
I cannot hear you very well.
That's fine. Okay. Better now? Okay, sorry about that. As I say, I've been dealing with the international business almost all along my professional career. Therefore, I'm supposed to be pretty much experienced on that. This is why a lot of people ask me, what are the key factors to be successful on the foreign market? Normally, my clients are Italian companies. I think you can imagine that their purpose is to take the shortcut and not to invest a lot of money, a lot of time, resources, energies, and so on. Unfortunately, this is normally an illusion because you need a certain time, a certain amount of resources to structure your strategy and to be effective. Unfortunately, there is a clear relation between the resources you invest and the result you obtain. Then, of course, you can be better than somebody else and optimize all that, or you can be even more lucky or unlucky. But in any case, this relation remains. And not all the people understand it. By the way, talking about the key factors of the success, of the international business success, you can list a lot of things, like a good strategy expressed through a business plan, for example, or some effective adjustment in the products you manufacture, some services properly addressed to the country you got as a target, or a good pricing policy matching the target of the market you have in mind, and a lot of things like that. I'm not saying this is wrong. All these are requirements absolutely to take in consideration. But a lot of people, a lot of businessmen, Italian businessmen, dramatically underestimate two factors that are above this and come before all this. And these are culture and communication. You cannot imagine how much the companies underestimate these two factors. And at the end of the day, they are the crucial factors. This is something that doesn't come from me, but from the World Trade Organization, WTO. I'm sure you have heard about it. They say that 50% of the negotiation all around the world fail because of misunderstanding, cultural misunderstanding. I'm not talking about language misunderstanding, that are something else. I'm talking about cultural misunderstanding. I use a number of examples, but unfortunately I have no time. They are even funny sometimes. According to my little experience, this amount is even more important. I mean, more than 50%. I'm not sure if you are familiar, some of you or all of you are familiar with the Italian habits and Italian culture. Just to give you a small example. Try to imagine a company coming from abroad, whatever you want, doesn't matter. and that want to settle in Italy and open a branch here. Do you think it would be different to open it in Milan or in Palermo with the purpose of distribute the product throughout all the Italian territory? I'm not saying something that deal with quality of the business environment, but just with the difference, okay? Obviously the answer is yes, it has an impact. And we are talking only about 4% of the whole world population when we talk about Italians. So try to move this concept on a much bigger scenario, like the whole world. Or take any country you have in mind. Take China, 1.6 billion people. Can you imagine how many differences there can be into this population if 4% of the population, like the Italians are, have already so much differences between one and the other? So this is just to let you understand how crucial is effectively is this factor at the end of the day. In other words, if as far as the companies don't understand this difference, they cannot have significant and consistent result abroad. This is just a little example I was mentioning before of the cultural difference. Other than this involves a little, much more than this, but it's just to give you a short idea. Some common fields across the board are possible to be defined in any case. For example, talking about the Italian companies, they're used to present themselves with a self-oriented way. In other words, they all say always the same things, like we are the best, we do the best product, we have 40 years of experience, we have an excellent ratio between quality and price, and so on. So, from the foreign client point of view, this sounds like the same old story. And they don't understand that they have, first of all, to answer to the client need. And this is a psychological point of view that they hardly understand. And it is extremely difficult to achieve a good result if you don't understand that. Sounds simple, but it's not like that. Can you please raise your hand if you know this guy behind me? Almost all of you, exactly, that's amazing. This guy, for the few people that don't know him, is Lionel Messi, and is probably or certainly the best player, the football player in the world nowadays. Different opinion ourselves, of course. Why, I asked you if you know this guy. It doesn't matter if you are football fans or not, because this is a very good example of communication. If you take Lionel Messi and you make him play in the backcourt of his house, do you think all the people would recognize him as the best player in the world? Of course not. So this is the second key factor. We mentioned culture, and now we mentioned communication. This guy, just for your knowledge, generates about 600 million turnover himself. I'm not talking about Barcelona club, himself. It's difficult to calculate it precisely, as you can imagine, but I read somewhere that somebody tried to calculate it, including all the linked activities, like, merchandising, all the increase of the income of the media connected to him, and all that worth like 600 million every year. So it's business at the end of the day. It's not just football. But to generate that turnover and to be known and perceived as the best player in the world, we need all the camera switched on him when he plays at the no camp nowhere else and with no different condition. So, in other words, if we translate it into the everyday life, into the company life, you can even have the best product in the world, and objectively you can have it, but that's useless if you cannot communicate it properly. So, I would not say, as some of my colleagues say, that 50% or 60% of the value or of the, let's say, reason of success is due to communication. I don't want to say that because it's really difficult to give a percentage on that. But for sure, it's another one of the key. So if you combine the two things, communication and culture, you have already done more than half of your way. Okay? And you know, that sounds, as I said, simple, because in a few minutes I was able to give you an idea about that. But believe me, it's about 30 years that I'm doing this job. And I'm still trying to make it understand, the company, to understand this. Okay? So at the end of the day, if your communication is poor and flattened to the standard messages, I don't care if you say I'm the best, I'm giving positive messages to the other. If I'm saying only good and transmitting only good values about my company. If you're not able to break out and say something new, to invent something that really valorize your product and your service, you're doing nothing. I'm sorry to be so hard, but this is definitely my way of thinking. I think my time is over, and so if you have questions on
any commitments for them?
any commitment, I don't know. Do you have any commitment about that?
How can you exactly understand your clients' or your customers' needs?
This is a good question. So this is due. Obviously, you can go on centers and centers doing this job, and you still will make mistakes. Let's start with that. But according to my experience and to the experience of my staff, we are normally able to find out the advantages that some company objectively have compared to the rest of the market. And this is not, let's say, a strict concept that you have to follow at any cost. It's something that you adjust during the way. So normally you start with a theory, and then you carry on, maybe you make some adjustment, and at the end of the day, most of the time, we are effective and efficient in the job we do. Anybody else?
So if I have understood well, your job is based on the communication of the companies, how to tell the product of the consumers, your work.
Okay, this is a key factor. Today I focused on the key factors, and obviously I underline very much, as you realize, communication and culture. But my job is not only that. We are normally a sort of export office in outsourcing. So we take care of negotiation. Obviously we start from the communication, we start from the cultural understanding, because that's a base, no doubt. But we have to take care of the negotiation, the pricing policy, and the logistic, everything. So our typical client is a small company that doesn't have inside an export compartment or export department very well structured. Okay, so we take care of all the features of a typical export department for a company. Sometimes, honestly, we are called to give a consultancy even to big company that have all the structure inside. But in this case, these are, let's say, very punctual, very precise advices that we give for a specific problem. Our mission mainly is to act as an export department for small companies. So that involves a lot of things, okay, not only communication, but communication is obviously the starting point. Please.
You talk about new messages to give about the company.
Correct.
But we can talk about new messages in the advertising, because I think communication is also advertising.
Yes, this is it. I mean, new ideas this is something that deal more with marketing, but obviously has a big impact in the sales at the end of the day. So the advertising is, let's say, the main, but you have to fill in this main with new ideas. So I'm not proposing to change the main, or sometimes you can, if you have, let's say, really good new idea. But what I'm concerned is to change the content of the advertising, not to cancel the advertising itself, okay?
And we understand the content studying what?
I give you an example, so maybe it's clearer. Does it sound more effective to you if you say, we are an excellent company, we are very experienced, we have very good satisfaction from our client, and all this old story, rather than to say, well, if you want to examine our statistic, we have 99.9% of clients satisfied. You know what I mean? So numbers are effective, just to give you an example. But I need to change the content, to change the way you communicate. Thank you so much, guys.